Hello, welcome to this painting demonstration. What I'm doing today is I'm doing a snow scene across a valley with a couple of trees in the foreground. At the moment I'm just wetting the sky, quite wet, because what I'm going to drop in there is just a black, one of the colours that we don't normally use in watercolour. Okay, so that's the sky, quite wet now. What I want to do is bring in some cloud using just black, and you'll see that this black into this wet paint really does spread around a little bit, which is exactly what I want, because I want to create some quite dark areas at the top and then bring it lighter as you come down. So I've got quite a nice run of paint happening in the middle of the paper there, and I'm just going to bring this down now towards the horizon, thinking clouds as I'm painting these now, and allowing this to really create a lovely stormy cloud effect. I've decided to add some distant hills. These would be quite pale in tone, but it's still just using the black. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably about a number 3, and I'm just going to drop this quite dark colour into the background, and it's just black, and then just using a clean brush, a clean damp brush, I'm just going to sweep that colour down into the distant horizon and then take it off into the corner. It just gives the impression that there's some... Right, so what I want to do now is just paint some fields into this painting by just creating some darker rectangular shapes that get larger as they come towards the front of the painting and lighter as they go towards the middle of the painting where this light's coming from. So I'm just trying to give the impression of distant fields with a nice light area reflected on the snow towards the central part. And if I don't think it's dark or light enough, I shall add more colour like this to the outer edges, just to bring that central part here quite light. There we go. So I've got something happening now. I'm just going to do the same from the other side of the hill. I'll bring some small fields into there. They don't look like fields too much yet because they've got no trees or bushes around them. What I am going to do in a moment is put some trees and bushes around the perimeters of each of these fields. So remember, this is just at the moment. What I want to do now is add some bushes around those fields. So some small trees will define the outer edges of those fields. So as you can see, I'm just using the rigger brush. So the rigger with some quite dark paint, because it will be diluted by the paint, by the water that's on the paper, so it will fade quite a lot. But it's just showing the outer perimeters of these fields a lot more clear. As you can see, it's now quite detailed in terms of content. After a few minutes adding these dark colours, we've now got clear boundaries around all of these distant fields. Okay, it looks like the rest of this painting is now perfectly dry. What I want to do is to emphasise this corner here, which is the real foreground. In order to bring that forward, I need to use some quite dark paint and be quite brutal with this. It really is strong paint. Remember, I've got to add some white to this later to give the effect of snow in and amongst this dark area. But the initial impact is to try and create an effect of a hillside right in this foreground. I'm using plenty of water now and using that colour that's already on the paper to run it down the hillside, and maybe put a couple of rocks in there just to leave some gaps and add some interest onto this hill. You can see at the moment it's quite scrappy. There's not a lot of detail in there, but as I start to add these darks and bring them down and mix them in with this water, it'll all run down and create its own magic on the paper. I'm a great believer that brushing less and allowing the paint to move more adds more interest to a painting. It's just something I really like to see. Can you see how light now the background appears, and yet early on it appeared quite dark because this corner was bright, but now this corner's really dark paint. These areas look very light, and that's the impression, that's what we're trying to get, a nice strong tonal quality to the painting. Okay, I'm going to use a standard knife to to scrape in some rocks, and as you can see in the foreground, just using this knife shape, scraping in arc shapes will give the impression of rocks. What it does is it scrapes off the top surface of paint and leaves a pale area below in the crevices of the paper. Because the paper's rough paper, by the way, it's Saunders Waterford £140 rough paper, so it does allow you to leave quite a lot of crevices with paint in while scraping off the surface. What I'm going to do now is add a nice big tree into this area, and I'm just taking it right off the top of the picture. And can you see again how this dark is really standing out against the light? What I'm using is an 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm going to put 3 trees. They'll cross over and the branches will intermingle, and we'll separate them out later with a nice settling of snow on the branches. I'm just going to put a 3rd tree maybe in there, quite a big tree. I'm going to change brushes now to a rigger brush, and I'm going to extend some of these branches out into this light area. The beauty about this painting is I've got some very dark paint against a very light background, and that's the importance of this. We've got this real dark light situation going on, which is what watercolour is all about really. It's about painting light. So what I'm going to do is just put some white gouache along the tops of these branches that are horizontal, just to give the impression that snow has settled into some of these areas. And because the painting is still damp, this white gouache will spread into the black and give some lovely frosty effects in amongst these grasses around the base of the tree, and of course in these grasses that I painted in earlier on the hillside. So I'm just adding a few tufts of grass using white gouache and allowing it to move in amongst the dark damp paint that's already there. Okay, a good way to add snow is to take a rigger brush quite full of water and then sprinkle or flick the brush over the painting to give a nice effect. This will flick drops of white paint all over the painting at random sizes in random places, which is exactly what would happen with snow. So I'm just flicking the brush across the top of my finger and just tapping to release paint into the painting. Well, that's finished. It's quite a nice painting, quite a nice effect, considering it's only done with 2 colours, which as we said is lamp black and white gouache. You can use acrylic, but I prefer to use gouache. You can see in the foreground grasses quite a lot of detail, a lot of black and white grasses in amongst those rocks, as well as in and around the base of those trees, and the tops of the fence of course with white snow resting, and in amongst the branches you can see I've added plenty of white just to give the effect. And there of course is the snowflakes caused by the flicking of white gouache into the darker areas. All in all, quite a nice painting. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, why not have a go? Okay, bye for now.